Hello and welcome to another episode of Autogefühl with me, AJ. Just recently, you saw Holger testing the all-new Alfa Romeo Stelvio in the snowy mountains of Switzerland. But like he said, we really needed to test this car out on the racetrack to see if the claims that Alfa makes that this car can compete with the likes of the Jaguar F-Pace or the Porsche Macan is true or not. Furthermore, we also wanted to see how this car compares with its sibling, the Giulia Quadrifoglio, since they both share the same platform. So in order to do that, we've come here to one of Europe's most popular racetracks, Hockenheimring. So are you interested? Let's find out. Come on, let's go. Unfortunately, here today at this event, we don't have too much time to go into detail about all the exterior and the interior functions. So make sure you go back and watch Holger's video, as well as Thomas's review of the Giulia and the Giulia Quadrifoglio to get a holistic idea of these Alfa Romeos. But I'm going to try to cover as much as I can. So the Stelvio gets a lot of the similar design elements as the Giulia, such as these horizontal sleek headlights with bisonon lamps, as well as the iconic trademark Alfa Romeo Delta-like grille, such a prominent front grille that the license plate has to be pushed towards the side. And on the bonnet you see a lot of very dramatic theatrical lines which really lend this car such a beautiful Italian taste. Being Alfa's first SUV, I think they've done a really good job. The design still stands out as an SUV, but at the same time the roofline is quite low, it has a coupe-like back. The wheelbase is completely stretched out, so it has a very planted stance. Because we have the first edition, the launch special edition trim, we get 20-inch wheels. I'll talk more about the trims later. And towards the back, I think this is where the Alfa gets a little bit awkward, just my opinion. I think this lump that's at the back seems a bit out of proportion, but that's just my opinion. Let us know what you think about this design and put your comments in the section below. At this launch, we have what is called the Stelvio First Edition. This is a special launch edition of the car, and this comes with a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine, which makes 280 horsepower. It comes mated to a 8-speed automatic and the Alfa Q4 all-wheel drive system. Going forward, the variants will be called in Europe the Base, the Super, and the Quadrifoglio. Whereas in North America, it will be called the Stelvio TI, and the Quadrifoglio. The other engine options that will be available going forward later on are the other version of the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder petrol, which makes 200 horsepower. Then there's also a 2.2-liter diesel, which makes either 180 or 210 horsepower. They all come with the Q4 all-wheel drive system, except for the 180 horsepower diesel, which is only rear-wheel drive. This, the first edition, costs upwards of 56,000 euros. With the Stelvio First Edition, you get a lot of standard equipment. For example, the 8.8-inch touchscreen, bisonon headlamps, parking sensors, dual-zone climate control, the 20-inch alloys, a power tailgate, things like that. In the lower trim levels, you will get a smaller screen. But apart from that, let's take a look at the rest of the cockpit and the dashboard. On the left, you have the steering wheel. This is very sporty, I think. It has a flat bottom, and it has column-mounted paddle shifters for the 8-speed automatic, which is the only transmission option you get with the Stelvio. And since the paddle shifters don't turn with the steering, they're really long, so you can still reach them while you're making turns. Interestingly, again, kind of the Alfa quirkiness, the buttons for the parking sensors, the auto shut-off, and the power tailgate are not here in the middle. They're all the way here on the left, which is kind of counterintuitive. But then again, I don't see anything wrong with it having it there. It's just I would expect them to be here. But apart from that, you have a large tachometer on the left and a speedometer on the right with a screen in the middle, which gives you a lot of useful information. We can't turn it on right now because we're indoors. But apart from that, as we continue further down here, again, very nice build quality, lots of nice wood. You can still feel the grains and the texture of the wood, which I really like. The whole car, unfortunately, gets full leather in this trim level. Up here you have a USB port and a 12-volt power socket. The knurled finish kind of reminds me of a bottle cap. This is the gear lever for the automatic, and this is the driving mode selector. DNA, D stands for dynamic, N for neutral, and A for advanced efficiency. I guess they wanted to keep it DNA, so they didn't have it as eco, then it would be DNE. But anyway, in the middle, this is a very useful navigation system for the infotainment. This kind of reminds me of the BMW iDrive system. Has a very large circular wheel, but it's really easy to operate when you're on the go because it's really big. It comes to your hand really easily. The navigation through the menus is also really intuitive, so the system works really well. Fortunately, we have not been able to test this, but go back and watch Holger's review where he goes in depth. This car also has the electronic parking brake, and let's give it a shake test. So it's true, Alfa really makes much better quality interiors nowadays. Let's hop into the back seat. Getting in is really easy thanks to the tall SUV stance. Well, as you can see, I have plenty of knee room. There's pretty good headroom as well. I'm 5'8" or 1.7 meters, and this seat is set to my driving position. Apart from that, you do have the full leather interior. Continue to the back seat. You have two air vents in the back, although you cannot change the temperature. You have two USB sockets down here, a mesh pouch behind the seat, very comfortable armrest. The window line, even though it's kind of high, I think it still makes the cabin feel quite roomy and airy. You have ISOFIX points for child seats, as well as an armrest with cup holders. And finally, let's check if I can fit in the middle seat comfortably, because we do have a very large transmission tunnel. Well, the seat itself is not too bad. It is a bit firm, of course, especially because of the armrest. It's not that soft, but it's not that high, it's not really raised. And if your co-passengers are willing to share their leg space, I guess 3 people would be a tight fit back here. So let's pop open the trunk. There's a button and the tailgate lifts automatically. It's kind of slow, but anyway. You have plenty of loading space here. It's really flat and rectangular. You can fold the seats. They fold in a 40-20-40 fashion. And you have to push them down, and then they lay completely flat. You can also lift the shelf to access your emergency kit, and you even get a 12-volt power socket. First, let's take a spin in the new Stelvio. Unfortunately, we cannot really stretch the legs out of the car because we're in a smaller, tighter section of the Hockenheim race circuit complex. But hey, let's see what we can do. We have the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine, which makes 280 horsepower. This comes mated to the 8-speed automatic transmission with paddle shifters. It comes with the Alfa Q4 4-wheel drive system. And let's see how it goes. Wow, the steering is really fun. You know, I have a philosophy. According to me, there's only 2 really important things to make a car fun. For people like you and me, the car enthusiasts, to drive a car and to really enjoy it and to really love the experience, it has to involve all your senses. And now let's break that down. There isn't much in the way of taste or smell that a car can really do for you. So what you're left with are the other 3. So yes, the car has to look good, for sure, certainly. But more than that, it has to feel good and it has to sound good. I think if these two things are there, the whole experience of the car is so much better. And the Stelvio really does excel in these two corners, rather these two aspects. The steering is really direct. It's a bit light. I would have maybe liked it to be a little bit heavier. Unfortunately, like I said, we are not allowed to put it into dynamic mode here on this track today, so I don't know if that's going to really change the steering feel. But in neutral or natural, the N from the DNA selector, it's okay. But I really like that it's direct, it's quick acting. And the engine, yes, this is not the Quadrifoglio engine that's coming later this year, but even this 2-liter Turbo 4, when you're really pushing it, it sounds pretty good. Let's wait till we get onto the longer straight and I'll open it up and I'll show you. Yes, it is an SUV, so you do feel the body rolling, but you know, you clip the apex, let it run wide, power out. You can have a lot of fun with this. Now you see here, now you can hear the engine a lot better. 130, 138, 140. It has good in-gear acceleration. Absolutely no complaints from the steering wheel or the tires. A lot of grip. Visibility as well is really good. Of course, this is an SUV, so you have a higher seating position, so it doesn't really feel like you're low down. You're still sitting a little bit higher. The seating position is also, you know, at a higher level than perhaps, you know, in a Giulia for sure. So that way the seating position is not the most sporty, but apart from that, the paddle shifters are really long, so they don't move with the steering wheel, so you're gonna have to keep track of where it is, but because they're so long, it's easier to, you know, shift when you're going around corners. But honestly, you don't really need to worry about it, because the 8-speed automatic doesn't miss a beat. It does a really great job. Yeah, it does, the body does pitch, you know, and I wish I could have tried out D mode in the drive mode selector to see how the chassis would change, but I'm not allowed to, and since this is going to be on camera, I don't want to get in trouble for that later. But yes, I think the Stelvio has a great package overall. If this is going to be your only car, the one car that you're going to use, it does a lot of things really well. It's pretty luxurious on the inside. It undercuts in terms of price the big German brands, at least here in Germany. At the same time, it has much better build quality than we expect than from Alfas before this. Of course, the Giulia already showed us that Alfa can really make a great car in terms of build quality. So that continues here in the Stelvio. Apart from that, it's an SUV, so you have plenty of space. If you want to go off-road or in the snow, like Holger tested, it can manage it pretty well to, again, what most people would need on a regular basis. It's not going to be a true off-roader, but here you can see we're already going 170. Really handles the weight well. Hard on the brakes. The brake feel is quite numb. It has a good bite, as you can see. The hazard lights came on, but yeah, the brake feel could have been a little bit better, I think, because it was quite numb. But it's, again, this is not the Quadrifoglio version. It's a sporty iteration, but it's not outright performance oriented. We'll have to wait till we get the Quadrifoglio version of the Stelvio to test how that is. But anyway, back to what I was saying. This is going to be your only car. It does most of everything that you want, and it does it pretty well. It's a jack of all trades. But that also probably means that, you know, it's the master of some. I wouldn't say the master of none. But I think that will come to light once we drive the Giulia Quadrifoglio. Then I can tell you how this compares with that. Because let's remember, this Stelvio and the Giulia are based on the same platform. So they share a lot of the same underpinnings. And that's about it, actually, because right now we have to bring the car back in because our short drive on the racetrack with the Stelvio is over. But now let's jump into the Giulia Quadrifoglio and then compare the Stelvio with the Alfa's benchmark performance car. Now we are here in the beast, the Giulia Quadrifoglio. This has the Ferrari-derived 2.9 liter bi-turbo V6 engine, which makes 505 horsepower. It comes mated to either an 8-speed automatic or, in this case, a nice short-shifting 6-speed manual. It has a carbon fiber propeller shaft, which goes to a torque vectoring rear differential, so it's only rear-wheel drive. And let me just try to get into a much better comfortable position. Yeah. Unfortunately, we still don't get to drive this car for too long, but let me try to compare it as much as possible. Of course, this is the really full powerful Quadrifoglio version, so it's not an apples to apples comparison with the Stelvio that we drove, but still, you know, it's a good way to test this platform, and it could probably give us a good idea of how the upcoming Stelvio Quadrifoglio would be. And again, we're not allowed to change it from the neutral driving mode to either the dynamic or the race, so we'll have to make do with what we get. But wow, already this car is so quick. This is so much more powerful than even the likes of the M3 or the C63, and this is one of the fastest four-door sedans around the Nürburgring. So this car means business. It's not joking around. The steering again is a bit light, and in that way it's very similar to the Stelvio that we drove. But the pedals are really well spaced. The brake pedal in this car has a much better feel than the one in the Stelvio. And yes, the steering has carbon fiber, the seats are carbon fiber, there's a lot of carbon fiber in this car. So it maintains a 50-50 weight distribution. I wish I could push this a little bit faster, but you know, there's so many other cars in the front. I can't really stray out of line. It's really easy to heel toe downshift, but I can feel the traction control stepping in this neutral mode. It's not letting the car slip its tail out, which this car can do quite happily, I must say. And again, you can watch our review of this Quadrifoglio version that Thomas has done, full in-depth. That'll give you a better idea. But on the racetrack, you know, I can tell you that this car actually is quite comfortable for such a sporty car, especially in this neutral mode. You know, the car isn't bouncing around, it's not pitching around, it still has quite a supple ride, but of course the body is really well controlled, there's not a lot of roll, and you know, you really don't feel the speed at all because it's still so well insulated. And that engine is so fantastic. You can hear it. Like I was saying, sound and steering. This car has the sound part down like no other car in this segment. I mean, it's more psychological, I would say, simply because, you know, it's a Ferrari-derived engine. And that is, let me turn the walkie-talkie down a bit. That has a lot to do with the marketing of it, you know, but just because you know that there's a little bit of Ferrari DNA, or rather quite a lot of Ferrari DNA in this engine, and hence in this car, it just makes you feel so much happier. Take it up to the red line, 150, 160, 170, 180, absolutely no problem. Has a lot of tremendous amount of grip, hard on the brakes. Again, this brake has really good feel compared to the Stelvio, like I said earlier. heel toe downshift to rev match. The pedals are placed really well for that. This car is so much fun. But I can totally see that you can daily drive this car. Oops. And like I said, it kicks the tail out a little bit if you wanted to. But you could totally daily drive this car because it has that comfort in it. You know, you can take long distances in this, not a problem. But at the same time, when you want to take it out on a track like this, and you want to have some fun, you can totally do it as well. I'm sure that if you put it in the race mode and the traction control is let up a little bit, it becomes even better. I do wish steering was a little bit heavier, and I can guess that perhaps in the race mode or in the at least in the dynamic mode, the steering would get heavier. I'm just not allowed to change into that right now, so I can't really be sure. And yes, it's also unfortunate, but I can really feel the traction control cutting in and cutting the power really early on, because this car just wants to slide out all the time. So whenever I'm hammering the throttle out of a corner, I can feel that the engine is being cut off. But you know, hey, if this is your car and you want to slide it around, this shows that you can totally do that. Just put it in race mode, and then a lot of the aids will be turned off. You can put it in the stiffer suspension mode as well if you want to, and then that'll be, I think we can do that, that's okay. Oh no, it seems that that's also been deactivated for this event. But honestly, this normal setting for the suspension is good enough. You can feel the car, the chassis is communicating with you, and you can feel where it's losing grip, if it's losing grip. And again, like I said, two things that are important, steering and sound. And along with steering, I also mean feel. So how the chassis communicates with you through the seat, how you can feel what the tires are doing through the steering wheel. All of these things are really important to make the overall experience better. And with that, our drive of the Giulia Quadrifoglio comes to an end. Or no, I take that back. We get one last lap, so let's make the most of it, shall we? Oh, missed a gear there. Again, just cutting power. See, my foot is flat to the throttle, flat on the floor. Now the power is coming in. So the traction control is really cutting in the power. But see, we're already at 210, 216. Hard on the brakes. Really good brake feel. It brakes in a straight line. Kick the throttle, downshift. It's giving me a lot of warnings. Again, I'm throttling completely, but only now is it letting me put the power down. So without any of the aids, this car can be a bit of a handful, I'm guessing. Again, since it's rear wheel drive only, it's quite a hooligan. But hey, that's how I like my cars. Again, just no power. And then it lets me give some beans to the car, and then it takes it away again. I really wish I could change the drive mode to dynamic. And now our drive has come to an end. So we got one extra lap in there, which is great. So again, it's not a apples to apples comparison with the Stelvio, but it shows that this chassis, this platform, really has a lot of potential. And I think the Stelvio like I mentioned, it's a great overall package. It has some of the same DNA as the Giulia, so that definitely shows. It's definitely quite agile for an SUV of its size, and it certainly can hold its own against the competitors in the segment like the F-Pace or the Macan. So there's definitely no doubt about that. But what I would be really interested in seeing is how the Stelvio Quadrifoglio plays out compared to the Giulia Quadrifoglio, and hopefully we can bring you that sometime soon. So I'm here with Rebecca Reinermann, the brand manager for Alfa Romeo Germany. Thank you so much for being with us. So what does the future for Alfa Romeo look like?
We have a great future ahead, to be very honest. We started now with the new products, with the lineup of Giulia. We introduced Giulia, we introduced Stelvio, and there's many more to come. We invested a lot into the new factory, new production, new development. Everything that is built on this Giorgio platform, the new platform, is completely new. It's not taken from anywhere in the big Fiat Chrysler world. It's not taken from Ferrari. It's been just, we borrowed Ferrari expertise in development. But everything is new, and we've invested a lot into this and into the future of Alfa Romeo. So I can tell you the future is bright. There's lots more to come.
So definitely we can expect more products with the same platform as the Giulia and the Stelvio. So maybe you can give me an idea about how else you're going to leverage these Ferrari engineers that you guys have now. Are you going to use them to develop maybe new engines for the 4C?
I cannot comment on that. We will develop. I mean, the 4C is definitely something that we're going to develop more and that we're going to keep in our range. There's also going to be maybe other cars in that direction. However, I mean, the product range that is coming up is really good in tune with the trends, in tune with what a customer would expect these days of Alfa Romeo. So I think in the future we'll be pretty much good set up for our customers.
I know that Alfa Romeo as a brand stands for driving pleasure and actually having the person behind the wheel. Yeah. But what about improvements and developments in technology in the direction of autonomous driving or electric drivetrains, things like that, which a lot of other car manufacturers are definitely paying a lot more attention to. How does Alfa Romeo feel about this, and what are they doing to go forward in this direction?
So I can tell you that the group is working on sustainable technologies, like everybody is, and you'll see it when we're ready.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
The Stelvio First Edition that we drove today costs upwards of 56,000 euros. The Giulia Quadrifoglio that we drove today is upwards of 72,000 euros. So certainly today's review was not an apples to apples comparison. But what I can tell you is how these two cars behave when driven back to back on a racetrack. And in that sense, the Stelvio can really hold its own. I think it's a really good overall package. It has a dynamic chassis, a good engine, plenty of steering feel, good comfort and luxury, and a spacious interior. Overall, if you want to invest in one car, which you can do pretty much everything you want in, I think the Stelvio is a good bet. So let us know what you think and put your comments in the section below.